Hello, hello, my beloved waking gods and goddesses. Welcome to Love, Truth, and Beauty. This is episode 401 and my 21st installment of Conversations with Men. And with me today is the master wizard astrologer himself, Rodney Goodwin, whom I consider to be my masculine voice of reason, whispering.
Yeah,
Whispering nuggets of
I know,
calm.
right?
Welcome, Rodney. Thank you
Uh,
so much for being here with
Thanks
me.
for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yes, as you were saying, we are in very, very deep waters and learning to navigate a new way. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So we are, coming into 2025, and this is a major year of transition, obviously, because on an astrological level, we're going to have all of the outer planets, which is in context to your unconscious, subconscious mind, go into from the Earth energies, which Pluto has been in Capricorn for quite some time. It just moved into Aquarius. And then we've got Uranus sitting in Taurus right now, but it's going to move into Gemini. And then we have Neptune at the end of its transit in Pisces, which will be moving into Aries. So the theme's going to be going in to the middle of the year and into 2026. It's not going to be earth, it's going to be air, and it's going to be fire. So right now, we're dealing with a lot of water energy because we have a major aspect happening right now. It was a triple conjunction with Neptune, the North Node, and Venus, which is a
Mhm.
very powerful conjunction. And so it's a lot of water right now with the North Node being, moving into Pisces. And we still have Saturn in Pisces, and we've basically been you know, getting into this Piscean energy now with the sun, the sun is going to be moving into it as well. So we've got a lot of water energy right now. And so what's happening with water energy is that sometimes you can drown if you don't know how to swim
Mhm.
and you don't know how to navigate the boat, you can crash it into the rocks on the etheric aspect of your own consciousness, your own life, which is what's
Mhm.
happening to a lot of people right now. In context to navigation, their boats are being navigated by something else besides themselves.
Yes.
And so they're throwing out things that are very, very cryptic in nature, yet it's trying to bring a major swing. Okay, so we've been in this really hardcore Earth energy, hardcore lockdown scenario in 2020 and all the way through all the the needlecraft shit. And
Mhm.
then all the stuff, it's all been real heavy, right? Everything's been like, pressed down and shaken together and pressed down. And so people are tired of that. They're worn
Yeah.
out. They're literally worn out. And so what's happened is that the pendulum has swung, especially in the United States, politically. What's happened? The pendulum has made a major swing. Okay. It's not just like, oh, well, we went from, Democrat to Republican. We went from, the the blue and the red, blue, right? No, man, we went from an Aries North Node to a Pisces North Node
Wow, that's a great way to put it.
on
Holy
the wheel.
moly. Indeed.
That's the pendulum swing that we're dealing with in context. So we went from that, that fire energy, we had wars and people just, being assholes and, just, no one cared about anybody else but themselves. And they're not going to listen to reason, not going to listen to you. And then now we're all of a sudden in this, it's Pisces. And so now it's like, oh, everybody wants to be an activist. Everybody wants to be connected to something. The bigger wants to be connected to the bigger picture of things.
Mhm.
You know, and so that's that Pisces energy. Well, but what sits on the south side of that is what? Virgo. See, where the healing actually has to take place
Indeed.
within the planet is Virgo. See, now you can't tell me that these aren't set up psychological operations with in context to now they're starting to throw out all this health stuff with the government. See,
Mhm.
which is what the health gate is in context of Virgo. Well, we need to look at all this stuff. Let's do an order to get all the fluoride out of the water. Let's do an order to, let's look into all these stuff that they're putting in the food now. Like the pendulum has just like swung all the way over. See? We're like getting this huge swing and it's
Yeah.
causing more divide and conquer tactics, see?
Yes.
Because of it. That's the narrative. It's the water aspect. What they're doing is they're reprogramming the water on the collective mind.
Hmm.
That's why we have Neptune's 29 degrees. It's in an anaretic position with a lot of
Right.
tension, and it's still what? It's still squaring off the galactic center
Yeah.
at 26, 27 degrees Sagittarius. We're just off 2 degrees from the galactic center still. So when we're looking at those energies, they're pulling the energy out of the ethers. And then what are they doing? They're spell casting it out in context to the media. And almost everybody that I see is taking the carrot. They're following the carrot down the rabbit hole.
Oh my gosh. That's so
Like
true. That's
like,
so
oh my
true.
God, this is so great. All of a sudden, all this we're looking into everything, all the corruptness, and we're looking into everything that's happening, and it's gonna be great. The golden age is here.
No, it's not.
See? And so this is what they're throwing out at you,
Yeah.
right? Because we've been in that really oppressive energy for quite a while. Now they want to just swing the pendulum to, oh, we're gonna liberate you. See? It's just a pendulum swing on context of the law of rhythm.
Indeed. Indeed. And the swing, it's like, here it is. And it's just,
Yeah.
and then when
It's
it
a
lets go,
it's a circus ride, man.
indeed.
Yeah, you know?
Wow.
And people are buying tickets to the circus, you know?
Yeah.
So, um,
I'm just making snacks watching.
yeah, yeah, it is good entertainment. To see what are they gonna throw out at us, throw out next, I
Yeah.
mean, it's just
Yeah.
like, but anybody who knows or understands the work, the great work, and the work of gnosis within themselves can have an eye to see what's going on. The problem is that the people running the show at the highest levels know the occult too.
That's right.
And so they know what symbolism, what psyops, what things to throw out, predictive programming, these type of things. And they use the symbolism in context to the unconscious, subconscious mind, which is the Neptune, the outer planets, Neptune, Pluto, Uranus aspect, right? They ignite that stuff during times of high planetary magic.
Mhm.
They know how to do it because
They
they are
they
they are
really
master
do.
occultists. They understand and they know the occult. And so this is how they manipulate the reality field and they have the media outlet to do it because they have cultivated those connections and that media for decades now. So that's a stronghold.
Yes.
That's what we call a
Yes.
stronghold. So they've got people by the neck, and people don't even know it. They just think everything's going to be okay. And they don't realize that what's happening is that they're getting pulled into a deeper lockdown, more of a controlled aggregate and environment to where everything will be controlled. Money system, all the way down, surveillance. This is just a Trojan horse.
Hmm.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
And you don't think that these guys are, they know what they're doing. When you look up I mean, let's face it, okay, Trump, he is a powerful guy. So they're using that energy. They're using his energy, I believe, to throw out all this in context. See,
Yes.
and they're using his Aruda Lagna. They're using his planetary placings and templating in context to this to basically forge this kind of utopian kind of feel or utopian aspect from the dystopian,
Hmm.
part that they were playing before,
Yeah.
so that they can suck everybody into the great
Yeah.
great abyss.
Shields up, kids, even more than ever, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, yeah, because you have to at this point, the illusion and the psychological operations and the things that are coming are going to get more intricate. They're going to get more intense. They're going to get more intricate. They're going to be harder to discern if you aren't navigating with your heart. And this is the problem,
Hmm.
is that the heart vortex is closed with most people
Yes.
because they're still locked down in betrayal and woundedness within their nervous system.
Yes. That is such a great point. That seems to be coming up in a lot of my conversations with my clients and students. I'd say over the last few months.
Yeah.
The
We just
betrayal aspect makes us, well, there seems to be a polarity. You're either opening up to new possibilities or you're shut down. There's no
right.
actual healing that's going on. There's just a sort of free will, nilly-nilly, anything goes kind of thing. And then the fuck it all attitude. What's the use?
Right. And a lot of people are, what's the word I want to use? They don't understand that your state of mind is driving it.
Yes.
I mean, I'll just give you an example, so we just had this, like, this Super Bowl, right? And everybody was like, it's one of the largest psychological operations
Yeah.
that goes on.
Missed it.
And so, of course, the halftime show was all about black slaves, black everything. And I'm not racist, man. I got black people working for me. I was married to a Hispanic woman. I mean, I am the least person that would be. I mean, I think
Mhm.
all the root racists need to get together and start kicking some ass. But the problem is that there's this wound of betrayal
Mhm.
within the races, that they don't trust each other. And so what's happened here is that wound got reopened during the halftime show. It was another psychological operation that they threw out in context to this, and now it's all you see being put out. Literally, like, some friends of mine on my Facebook page are like, they're biting on this.
Wow.
And they literally, and so if when you try to bring reason and logic into the situation and you explain to them, look, you're only a slave to your mind.
Hmm.
If you learn how to live in freedom, you live in the freedom of the mind.
Yes.
And when you learn how to live in the freedom of your own mind, and you realize that you have the ability and the authority to what? To control your thought
Yes.
forms
Choose your thoughts.
and check them at the gate,
Indeed.
right? Then you don't get pulled into the harvesting tool they're using to harvest energy.
Indeed. Indeed. That the button pushing, triggering kind of
The
thing.
trigger, man.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
use the triggers to open the wounds.
Yeah. Yeah. I did not know that about the halftime show because I didn't watch it. But I before we met, I was reading through an email that I received from a client of mine whose daughter is all up in arms. She's in high school,
There
all
you
up
go.
in arms about all this kind of stuff and the racism. And so she wanted to have a conversation with me about how I deal with racism. And I'm thinking, oh boy, this is going to be good because I personally haven't experienced it toward myself. I'm not denying that on certain terms it exists, but it's an interesting contextual bit of information that you've just given me, because now I see the context from which her daughter is coming from.
Well, it's in the
Because,
blood.
yeah, yeah.
And that's what people don't understand. The trauma is within the bloodline.
Hmm.
Look, our ancestors on my side, taking it back to Albion, were slaughtered by the
Hmm.
Inquisitions.
Hmm.
Ran out of Ireland, ran out of Scotland, ran out of Wales, all the way up into Scandinavia. Tortured at the stake,
Yes.
burnt alive, every possible
Yeah.
way you could imagine to be tortured or murdered or slaughtered, they did it.
Yeah.
So that's in the bloodline.
Hmm.
Okay? All right. So when we're dealing with races, there's no race that hasn't been persecuted on this
Yes.
planet.
Yes. Yeah.
It doesn't matter how far you go back in context to our into our history and our galactic history.
Yeah.
It started with the betrayals themselves in context.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we're looking at the mindset of it, as long as they can continue on the loop of the wheel of the eight to the victim mentality,
Yes.
we're being pushed up against because we're this color or that color,
Right.
and we don't get a fair shake because of our skin, and
Right.
we're entitled to more because we got ripped off. All of this victim mindset
Right.
that drives the narrative back into the abyss.
Okay. And the media does this with all of their, well, with these events and with their narrative forms that
It's the it,
trigger
it's
that
the
atavism.
it's the ritual that triggers the wound.
Yes. Yeah.
It triggers on a
Yeah.
collect in the collective mind
Yes.
because
Across
they
all
know,
timelines. Wow.
yeah, because they know that energy flows where consciousness goes. So if people are putting their consciousness on the ritual while they're watching it through their box at their
Hmm.
house, right?
Wow.
Then what's happening on an unconscious, subconscious level, they're picking that up,
Yeah.
right? And then it's like a virus. It literally goes through the
Yeah.
unconscious,
It
subconscious
is a
mind
mind
and
virus.
replicates itself
Hmm.
to find a place where it can land and open up that wound within the collective mind.
Mm.
It's
Wow.
like it's like a parasite.
Yeah.
That's what it
Literally a
is.
parasite, a
I
mind
should
parasite.
Virus isn't really a good explanation, more like parasite.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it requires a host.
It has
And
to
when
have a
you've got
host.
the bloodlines and the DNA, it's already, and these occultists, they know what they're doing. These black magicians are sitting there poking you with a red hot stick.
Yeah,
Remember this?
yeah,
You over it, Nat?
yeah, right. And so it's something that in many cases people take the bait
Mm-hmm.
because it's what? It's comfortable
Yes.
to
Yeah.
do.
Yes.
It's to be able to fight against it and resist the um the pull of the comfortable of what you know and resist that and do something different,
Mm-hmm.
which would be what? The opposite or the on the
Mm-hmm.
axis point of that, right? Then you're coming into the opposite energy of what the parasite wants you to do.
Mm.
And what does that do? That routes it out because you're reversing the reversal.
Yes. Yes. And that is a choice. It is a conscious choice.
It's a conscious choice. The problem is most people don't have a choice because they don't have awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're not aware it's even being done to them.
Yeah.
They don't even know it. So there's no resistance at all.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side of that, they find others who are hosted, and then they form an alliance with the parasite.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what happens. And then that's how we get these protests. See, everybody wants to bring their sign out or they want to march or protest. This is how the parasite works. And then what does that do? That creates a collective energy,
Mm-hmm.
and it feeds off of
Yeah.
all of that energy
Yes.
to get bigger and bigger and
Becomes
bigger.
another pendulum in and of itself that just collects life force.
Exactly.
Wow.
And so on the masculine level, this is the problem because men in general haven't stood up to the fucking parasite.
Yeah.
See, they haven't put the warrior, taken their Mars energy and transformed it in context to the octave, which is Pluto. So the Scorpio energy that's there isn't ignited. It's not been charged because
Mm-hmm.
they're staying in their narcissistic aspect in context to the Aries gate and their Mars energy. And so because of that, they have no awareness of what's actually happening and going on.
Yeah.
So the narcissist fuels the parasite.
Yeah. And there that becomes an identity in and of itself that I belong to this group.
Right.
I'm the majority.
Creates an identity.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then that brings a what we call a false kundalini.
Mm-hmm.
So your
Yes,
energy is going up your spine, but it's being harvested by the parasite.
indeed. Yeah.
Because it's a false kundalini. It's the wrong snake going up your spine.
Indeed. Indeed. It's actually immobilizing you and harvesting. It's diverting the direction of your life force away from you.
It is, and then it's pulling on the trauma that's lodged in your nervous system and creating
Mm-hmm.
more of it. And this is where they lodge. They lodge in the nervous system. I've literally felt when I've been working with people, this shit move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It knows that you know it's
It
there.
moves. When you know it's there, you know it's there. It
Yes.
moves. It's crazy. You're
Yeah.
like, it just moved.
Yeah. And it'll try to pretend that it's your client.
Yeah.
It will actually try to merge with your client's identity. It's already trying to harvest the DNA and all of that, or at least mimic it in such a way that the client actually thinks it's acting on its own behalf when it's not.
Right, and that's the host and that's the vampiric aspect in
Mhm.
context when a person is being hosted and honestly it's not just one parasite. There are
No.
multiple
Yeah.
parasites that are
Yeah.
that are that
It's a
are working
team.
together, but
And
they're
they're at
all
odds with each other because eventually they will go to war over the
yes.
host
Yes, and
body.
so yes, and so what happens is that there's usually one major area in a person's life that drives the consciousness
Hmm.
in context to parasitical lockdown, and that usually is the host, and then the other ones feed off of that, on the back end. So they're like drafting. You know what I'm saying? They're drafting off
It
the
is
main
just
host.
creepy fucking shit. Holy moly.
And that's how it works. And so this is
Hmm.
why they've hidden or they've created the religious constructs so that you would never look into the actual occult
Hmm.
and be able to actually understand what gnosis really means or what
Yeah.
it really is in
Yeah.
context to find out who you are. Because when the game's up, when you actually do cross those thresholds of knowing thyself,
Hmm.
and then you start to have that awareness to understand that, whoa, those thoughts aren't mine. Wait a second, that's not mine. You know, stop at McDonald's and pick up that quarter pounder with cheese, that big Coke, and all those French fries. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's not your
indeed.
thought.
No, no. You think it is. It's actually
Yeah,
the parasite. It's
yeah,
craving,
yeah. It's crazy.
driving you to feed it.
Exactly. Because what? It's weaponized in context to wheat or gluten, and it's
Hmm.
weaponized in context to sugar.
Yeah. And
It's what feeds
sex,
it.
pleasure.
Yes. So this is how things roll with the majority of, you know, humanity, especially in America, because there's a fast food place on every corner.
Yeah. Yeah. The convenience of
Get it your way in 5 minutes, baby.
gratification.
Yep. Yeah. Gratification, microwave mentality. I'll just run through and grab this really quick.
Hmm.
Not actually prepare your own meal, put your own energy into it, your own energy field into it, and then bless it with your state of mind in context to the food itself, which will
Yes.
change the actual molecular structure of the food when you are actually putting into your own field. That's why when I at my bistro, when I cook most of the food because it's going into I am putting my energy into the food, and then people will come up out into the kitchen. They'll come out and they'll say, "That's the best meal I've ever had."
Yeah, because
Of course it
it's made
is.
with love and intention
Of
and
course it is.
consciousness. Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
And so that's how you change as a mage. That's how you change things in your own reality field.
Yeah.
And then eventually, if you when you heal enough, you'll be able to actually modify the collective reality field to the truth, to the actual laws and principles of the universe. But you've got to do it first for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once you are having interface with your own reality field and realizing that you are actually controlling it and changing aspects within your reality field by will, by intent, then you have the ability then to then take the land outside of yourself.
Hmm.
You take the internal land first, go within, and then at a certain point, the higher force then will release you to then take the land outside of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. We need to be reminded on a moment-to-moment basis that we are the grand creators,
We are.
here to move formless into form in our own unique,
Yeah.
special way. And people don't believe it because they're constantly looking outside themselves within the matrix and allowing the matrix to define them or to distract them completely, such
Yeah.
as that they forget they can create.
Yeah. And that's what's happened is the collective life force energy of the human race is hijacked by the parasite. And so the parasite then, to stay alive, has to continue with the psychological operations and the carrot and the
Hmm.
stick and the stick and duress and fear placed within in the midst of that, and realizing that it's fear that's actually driving the narrative to all these other aspects. So when we're
Hmm.
dealing with fear, we're dealing with fight, flight, and freeze. So we're going to be in a fight, we're going to run, or we're not going to do anything, just be stagnation.
Hmm.
And so when things are thrown out on a collective level, and then everybody picks it up all the way from the YouTubers, all the way down to the reels, all the way down to the social media, taking it to the mainstream media, the television, radio, all the way down, what happens? All that frequency is running through the ethers. And that's what the internet is. The internet is the ethers
Hmm.
context.
Hmm.
So people are just, I've heard of people like scrolling on TikTok for 6 hours,
What?
7 hours at a time,
Holy
just reel after
moly.
reel after reel after reel after reel. It's called the scrolling syndrome or something like that, man. I don't know.
Wow.
A friend of mine was telling me about it. Yeah, man, I sit in bed and scroll for 3 hours. I'm like, what?
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I just don't relate. I just don't relate to that shit, you know? I, but I know people who do it. I know
Mind
people
blowing.
who do
It's
it.
mind blowing. Yeah.
Um,
It's an addiction, I guess.
yeah. Wow. That is very
They
it's
can't
very
stop.
alarming. It's very alarming to me
Tell me about it.
that you can be that unconsciously and willfully controlled by a device that you are holding in your hand. You have no awareness what the fuck you're doing. That
No.
is alarming.
It is, and it's happening because, like with everything else, no one knows who they are. There's just
Hmm.
a large case of amnesia running around,
Yeah. Yeah.
and no one knows, anything about themselves,
Mm.
Um, if you ask a person, just, hey, um, you know, just simple. Do you know what your moon sign is? Most people wouldn't even know what that is. They might know their sun sign, maybe
Hmm.
because they know what month
Yeah.
they were born,
Yeah.
but they wouldn't know their even moon sign or their ascendant or
Mhm.
where their north and south node are placed, you know,
Yeah.
because they've never looked into it because they haven't actually felt the need to. But I want to tell you, there's an alarm going on right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
most people aren't hearing it
Yeah.
because
Security.
they're so
Oh.
enamored with what's going on
Hmm.
that they're not hearing the actual alarm to get you need to get going.
Yeah.
You need to
Yeah.
get moving,
Yeah.
and this is the clarion call in context to going from 2025 to 2028 to 2030. They have an agenda that they're pushing that they're going to try to bring in by 2028, 20 then the 2030. We as mages have to understand that there's going to come a point when there's got to be a collective. We can't fight amongst each other,
Indeed. We can't fall for that.
and look at it in context to ego. The ego has to be in check. It can't be running in context to, that's why we have to be a little bendable and
Yes.
mutable,
Yes.
because your perception of things isn't necessarily going to be what mine is.
Yes.
But in general, we have to really find common ground
Hmm.
with each other.
Yes. Grace, as you said, in one
Exactly.
of your Facebook posts, I really appreciated that because we have to learn how to bend, how to be
Yeah.
flexible and not be so concretized in a position and defend that position. I mean, it's just folly to still be in that place.
Yeah, and a lot of and then you get people who are diehards and they won't come off of certain things.
Hmm.
And I get it. I understand, you're entrenched. But look, when we're looking at cosmic principle and cosmic law, okay, that's foundational. At some point you got to graduate from grade school here.
Yes.
You got to get past the first and second, third grade. I mean, we got to move things up into a little bit more, you know, higher level of consciousness and
Hmm.
awareness.
Hmm. Yeah.
And just because you do a practice that I don't do doesn't mean that we can't find common ground together.
Hmm. Yeah.
You're not hurting anybody by doing what you're doing. It's just what you do,
You
you know? And so we have to get past the the petty stuff and start looking at the bigger picture, which is what the Pisces North Node's all about.
Mm.
So as it's come in now to play, it's the big picture. So this is part of where leadership has to come into play. And if there's no leadership to bring together the 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 magical order of men and women, and
Mm.
and and you know, being a leader to that aspect. Look, without balance, this is never going to happen.
Mhm.
So there has to be a balance, a literal balance of the scales within the leadership. They have to be able to be very, very keen in their awareness when it comes to parasitical consciousness and how people are healing. Look, people have to heal. There needs to be something that when we come together, that there's a healing protocol that's going on.
Hmm.
We just can't like, oh, let's have another teaching. Let's have another teaching. We need to actually implement. I'll tell you, I come from the church realm. Okay. I was in the church realm for many, 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 many years. But I implemented magical practices, and this just came from my templating within the church realm. So, like, literally, like, what we would do, there were so many things that I did that were like out of the box, like blown people's minds. But yet, because it was sanctioned by the Christian mindset, right? Everybody like dove right into it. Like, wow, this is great, right? So, like, literally, like, we would have sessions of people where we would do nothing but play prophetic music.
Mm.
I'd get on the piano and I'd have a
Nice.
couple musicians and we would just start playing and singing. And I'm not kidding you, people would just fall down on the floor and we would cover them with blankets and they would just weep
Aw.
for hours,
Gee.
releasing just whatever, whatever pain, whatever stuff was coming in, out of them. And we did this for a couple years. We were doing this. And then literally at the end of the session, I would go through the whole outside and inside of the building, and I would clean it up, and I would put it all together in the ethers, and then I would transmute it.
Beautiful.
I would
Beautiful.
transmute all that energy. I did that in the church
Yeah.
realm.
Yeah. Fantastic. What a sacred space.
Yeah, because they were throwing up all over the floor.
Hmm.
In the spiritual realm, it was full of throw up and
Yeah.
and crap and
Hmm.
garbage and all the crap that was coming up out of the inside of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the charnel grounds in Tibetan Buddhism. It's the
Yes,
cemetery of all the corpses, the muck, the blood and gore of trauma and a life never lived or your shitty life lived or whatever it is.
right.
Like the demons. Wow.
Exactly.
That's
So,
so cool. What a cool story.
yeah. And so in protocol, the first thing I would do is to draw a circle of fire around the building and seal it in.
Hmm.
But that was before I even knew anything about the circle of the
Yeah.
mage.
Yeah.
I was doing that. So these are the type of healing practices, and we got to get creative. We got to, the imagination it's limitless what we could do. And so once we start to actually implement something in context to this, where actual people can come and heal a temple, whatever you want to call it, right? People could actually come and heal their, and purge the parasite. This is what needs to happen.
Yeah. Here, here.
And, we can do it on an individual level, but I believe that where we're coming into now is there really needs to be a fast track.
Hmm. Indeed.
Not that, you're going to bypass anything, but that there needs to be an elevation take place and then an acceleration
Hmm.
of gnosis, which I believe can happen, instead of drudging it out day after day after day. And I'm doing my shadow work, man, and hating every minute of it.
Right. Right.
You got to enjoy the journey of what you're going through
Yeah.
and realize that that's the journey. I mean, you remember the picture in the Matrix where Neo's on the floor throwing up because he can't like accept the reality of how it
Hmm.
is,
I do remember that.
right? But then he
Yeah.
goes through all of this healing process where he's got acupuncture going on and he's got, all this stuff happening and they're feeding
Right.
them good, and so he's going through the process of purging the matrix out of himself over a period of time. so then he can pick up who his true identity is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the type of places that we need, and we need people who are masters in areas of healing, physical, mental, emotional aspects, to come together to work in those
Yeah.
temples, to work in those
Sign me
fields.
up. Yeah.
And that's how I see it.
Yeah.
And in some ways the Christian churches at least in the areas that I ran in were way ahead. They had like healing rooms and healing houses, and we had these gatherings going that were very prophetic in nature. And kind of where I in my vein where I was working. And so there's a lot to be said for the community aspect within the church. They know how to do community. And so in some ways we need to take lessons from that,
Hmm.
you know, and look at it in context to, hey man, there actually does need to be a moving into the true Aquarian energy,
Yes.
which is the aspect of bringing people together and transmuting energy on a very high level. And you know the leaders need to come forth now with this aspect, because this is where things have to change. Things have to go here. And as long
Hmm.
as we're down here bickering with each other, you stole this, I stole that, you took this part of my, all this stuff, right? Going on. We're never going to come into agreement to bind the strongholds of
Yes.
of the evil that's taking place here, and tie its hands and tie its legs so that it has no movement anymore, and bind it. Bind it on the earth, you
Yeah.
bind it in the heavens. See? You bind it in the ethers if you bind it on the earth. So we have to learn as mages our authority. And that's part of the problem, is we don't understand our authority
Hmm.
here on this planet yet.
Right. No one dares declare it. And if you do declare it, you are you become a target for things that you don't expect. And that has been my experience. And you talk about you brought up the whole thing about betrayal earlier. And that is certainly something that has come up for review of late. And it's interesting because every Venus retrograde, which
Yeah.
happens what, every 18 months or so, here
Yeah.
we go. It's coming up. And lo and behold, just last night, had a dream about uh, community betrayals
Yes.
and the impact that has. But rather than seeing it in the context of it being a betrayal, seeing it as an invitation to sort of up level the way that you do things and to be more discerning about who you invite in terms of your
Yes.
organization. And just to reflect my sort of folly, the sort of naivete that Mark Passio talks about, when you want to see only the good in people without considering that these people might have an agenda that is not really in alignment with your vision, even though they claim to be a proponent of your vision, when in actuality, they're actual usurpers in disguise. So, part of my journey of learning discernment is really just kind of anchoring in that although I want to see the best in everybody, we're only human. And not all of us have navigated their shadow aspects
Right.
such that they can have the self awareness of knowing when they are actually doing quite the opposite of what they're intending and declaring that they are doing. So
Yeah.
that's a huge thing. So I thank you for like really just kind of like encapsulating those lessons. I mean, particularly in this time and place, because
Well, yeah,
it's a new reality that we get to materialize and manifest, but you have to be clear as to what those ingredients and aspects are and choose
right,
wisely.
right, yeah, and this brings up the idea of the round table. So, when we're looking at the round table, we have to realize that leadership is the key as it's checked in context to the balance of the seventh gate,
Mhm.
which is Libra. So the heart and the
Right.
feather so have to be balanced to
Yes.
that leader. So that leader has had to be able to open the gates of the underworld within himself.
Mhm. Right.
And Anubis has had to let him pass through because without that, you're still locked down in the underworld. And you still haven't dealt with certain aspects of your templating that need to be healed,
Mhm.
and the blood as well.
Yes.
So transmuting the bloodline then becomes very, very vital in context to the four dragons and the dragon energy on the medicine wheel. So when we're looking at that, there has to be an actual healing to the dragon lines that has to take place. And I think that's what's happening right now, when we're looking at the axis mundi and the four directions.
Mhm.
But again, at some point it has to manifest where all four dragons have to come forth in union at the table of the round table. And then we've got something.
Wow.
Don't know when that's going to happen, but it needs to happen pretty soon because
Mhm.
of the timeline trajectory that's taking place. Um,
Tell us more about that, Rodney.
well, I mean, look, with the the big change that took place politically and the pendulum swing that we're dealing with, we are literally dealing with a acceleration now of, as far as I'm concerned, with an acceleration of the AI timeline.
Yes.
Um, it's, I mean, it's gonna, with Uranus, and the whole idea with Uranus moving into Gemini in July, this is going to definitely accelerate the process because the Uranus is moving into the air sign of communication. So when we're looking at Gemini, we are looking at an unconscious aspect of the mind
Hmm.
with Gemini because it is the twins. So when we're looking at that third house, or we're looking at Gemini itself with Uranus sitting there, that is the octave aspect. So when we're looking at an octave, we're looking at Mercury and Uranus.
Hmm.
Those are the octaves on the inner planets and the outer planets. So you got Uranus and Mercury. And when you look at the correspondence to the Fool card, a lot of people think that it's the sun, but it's actually Uranus is the astrological correspondence of it,
Okay.
because that's the higher self.
Hmm.
Mercury is the magician on the ground. Uranus is the ignition of the higher self. It's where the ignition point takes place on the outer aspect. But you've got to go through Chiron, which is your wound and your gift, and you've got to heal the Chiron aspect, which bridges the unconscious, subconscious, and conscious realms of your life, of your templating. So once you realize where your Chiron sits, which is in Aries right now, so basically at the age of 49, you have what's called a Chiron return.
Hmm. I remember it well.
And depending on where, your Chiron sets and what house it's in and what it's aspecting, it's really good to know when you're going through that, because that's really the time when, the gift can come online
Mm-hmm.
in context to where it's placed, so that then you can go into the unconscious, subconscious aspect and
Mm-hmm.
actually do some work, because it's
Yeah.
bridging between the two. So when we're looking at consciousness creators, we're looking at Jupiter and Saturn. When we're looking at the inner planets on the ground in context to consciousness, we're looking at Mercury, Mars, and Venus, and Moon. And when we're looking at the sun, we're looking at the soul vehicle in context to the kingdom, or what you're wanting to build with your soul progression work, to the sun energy, and the ignition of that sun within yourself. And then when we're looking at the outer planets, that's the unconscious, subconscious mind in context to transformation, transmutation of Plutonian energy, the Uranian energy, which is the igniter, and then Neptune, which is the great healer.
Wow.
And those run octaves to each inner and outer planet. So with Mercury running the Kazami we just had in connection with the sun in Uranus, it was running the octave energy,
Mm-hmm.
because Uranus is in context to that, running the Mercury energy. It's an exalted position for Mercury. So now Mercury is resetting in the higher aspect of self in context to connection with that octave, because it reset in the Aquarian gate, which is what Uranus runs and then bridges to the Pisces gate. So that's how that works. So Mercury runs what? It runs the Gemini gate and the Virgo gate.
Mm-hmm.
See, right? So
Wow.
it's running the third gate and the sixth gate in context. And so what's getting ignited in context to that is the octave,
Mm-hmm.
which is Uranus running and Mercury. And so the higher self, in context of the nervous system, is saying, hey, soul, wake up and realize that it's your nervous system that
Mm-hmm.
needs work
Yes.
to
Yes.
access the higher elements of who you are.
Yeah.
See, and we just had that reset with
Yeah.
Mercury.
And these
That-
occultists know this, which is why
That's why
they're
they're doing what
they
they're
are
doing.
working overtime and stressing everybody out
Yeah,
that takes the carrot and the bait
yeah.
and
Down the
allows
rabbit.
their minds and their consciousness to be hijacked and essentially imprisoned within the matrix, unknowing that all you got to do is just own your attention and step out of it.
Yeah, because
Amazing.
if you continue to feed it, it's going to continue to grow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, at some
Wow.
point, at some point, if humanity can't catch it, the doors are going to be closed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Or you're going to succumb to their next big bait and be lost forever. You know, the whole AI thing is, I mean, it's an alarming thing and people think it's not real. It just blows my mind. It's like, I'm sorry, but all your little devices and inviting Siri and Alexa into your realm, and you think it's cool because you're too lazy to flick on the light switch, what the hell, people?
Man, I just got a phone call right before this podcast of a guy, and he's saying, we noticed that you aren't on the phone activation for your businesses and on the phone activation for the five um, phone entities, that when they talk into the phone and ask for a restaurant, your restaurant doesn't pop up. I said, of course it doesn't. I don't want it to. Well, sir, you know how much business you're missing out on? I said, I don't need Siri to make my business work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need the Siri, the
Yes.
iris to
Yes.
make my business work. Are
Yes.
you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm a magician, man. I work the ethers. I don't have to have, all of this technology. That is the technology.
Mm-hmm.
Your intent, your imagination, your
Yes.
navigation to your
Yes.
first eye.
Yeah.
That is the
Yeah.
organic
You've got a beacon
technology
out there already.
to the connection of your spindle, your auric field, in context to, how things are actually working within your own self. And that's what you use. You become the vehicle organically of your own
Mhm.
magic that's connected to the higher force and connected to the universal principles and laws of creation.
That's so cool.
And that activates the cells within your body
Indeed.
and the nucleus is in your body. When you
Yeah.
speak, you are creating
Yes.
with your vocal cords.
Yes.
Golder,
Yes.
with your voice. Your
Beautiful.
cells are listening to everything that is coming out of your mouth and that what you're thinking, because that's being voiced within your cells as
Mhm.
well.
Did you hear that, kids? You are the one that is calling positive life force energy into your cells through your creations.
And that's how, when you become a mage or you work to be a mage, this is part of the process of checking things at the gate because
Mhm.
everything is listening within your physical plane.
Yes. Yeah. So, kids, all the things that you say, your self talk, the way you speak to other people, the way you speak to other people is essentially the way you speak to yourself. So, just kind of be aware, notice what you're doing, catch yourself, don't beat yourself up, don't call yourself names, don't do any of that. And if you catch yourself, forgive yourself.
Exactly. And if you catch yourself doing that, make affirmations on the opposite end
Bravo.
to counteract the energy and get it dissolved. Transmute it and dissolve it in context to alchemy, and
Mhm.
then reform it into what you want it to be. It's like, how can we ever change this realm if we can't even see how we want it to be?
Yes.
If I don't have a picture in my mind of how I want things to be,
Yeah.
how we want this realm to be, then how are we ever going to change it if we don't have an actual vision?
Indeed. Indeed. This is about being the grand creator. You can't be the grand creator if you don't have your own vision.
Right. And so that's why at the round table we come into a what's called a common vision,
Mm.
and they're set into protocol and articles so that we can actually have a constitution that is written in context to the laws, the metaphysical laws that are present within our universal structure. And then those are the codes that we don't break.
Mhm.
See,
Yeah.
we're not code breakers, but we defend those codes with every bit of consciousness that we have.
Indeed.
And that's part of what needs to happen as well. And so there has to be, like I said, there has to be common ground that, you know, and ego has to be in check.
Hmm.
And if that can happen, then I think we would actually start to see some major things change on the reality field.
Hmm.
But until we get that unity consciousness taking place on a higher level, things are just going to continue the way they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
When are we going to make our move? You know,
Yeah.
I guess that's the big question because that's why we came here. We came into this reality here to change, to change the trajectory
Hmm.
of things,
Yeah.
you know. So I don't know. I think it can be done. I just think that, there has to be protocol to leadership that starts to
Hmm.
come together. We can do that without bickering and bantering back and forth at each other. We might have something.
Yeah. What do you
So
feel
yeah,
about our
Venus,
chances?
Venus, Venus is definitely in play right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
And
huge right
hopefully
now. I
with
mean,
this retrograde happening soon. I
yeah,
I
it's in a
I
shadow
look
period right
forward
now.
to it.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I look forward to it. And it's being amplified. Um, and so the anxiety that people are feeling, I'm hearing from so many, the anxiety about relationships, the anxiety about money, the anxiety about all the things going on politically, geopolitically speaking, um, the anxiety around evil run amok, whichever way you see it, because
right.
evil is in the eye of the beholder, as far as I'm hearing from
Huh.
many, many different people, which is always so fascinating to me. Um, what are some of the tools that you recommend in endeavoring to navigate, manage anxiety, manage the sort of bait biting or bait avoiding that we're all faced? I'm faced with it. I'm old, so I'm just better at willfully ignoring bullshit. But I have my moments where I'm just like, ah, no, step away from the vehicle, move
Yeah,
along,
yeah, yeah.
move along, move along. And
Right.
I have a level of sarcasm when I catch myself that really just kind of it just blasts it apart. The sort of concretized getting sucked into a screen or something like that, so
Yeah,
I'm minimal. I'm lucky that way.
yeah. Well, part of the part of the protocol is igniting the heart, opening the heart.
Mhm.
Um, because honestly, you're not going to be able to navigate it without your eye open.
Yeah, the first
And
eye.
yeah, and so the way that happens is that you have to start studying, man. You have to start looking into your templating. If you haven't done any of that, man, you need to start because it's fascinating. When you start uncovering nuggets of gold about who you are, it's like this excitement that starts to happen inside of you. And you start to go, wow, man, I had no idea that I had that or I had this, you know? And then once your consciousness then opens up to the idea that, oh, I have this in my templating, then it gets activated because all of a sudden your consciousness gets put on it, where it was cloaked before. It was occulted. That's why they call it the occult.
Mhm.
So it becomes what? An apocalypto moment where it's unveiled in your inner consciousness. So the apocalypto is what you need to enter into. And this is what they've psyoped in context to Revelation
Mhm.
and the Armageddon programming. See, so they've psyoped that to a destruction program instead of actually being a program of construction
Mhm.
within yourself. See, so they took it from construction or constructive aspects of the inner work of the inner man and woman, and they've taken it and flipped it on the reversal to a destructive Armageddon, oblivion, self-destructive type of aspect. When the actual apocalypto is just meaning that that which is occulted shall be revealed.
Yeah, yeah. The veils are removed.
Yeah. But everyone's locked down in the veil because they haven't understood that vibrational correspondence and what that actually is. Look, all those planets you're seeing up there, the Milky Way, the central sun, the galaxies, it's all within us. Venus is within you, or Shukra, Venus is within you.
Mhm.
And, Mars is within you, the moon, all this energy is within you. So you've got to learn how to navigate your templating in context to what's within you. So until you get that, and realize that, well, wait a second, these energies are inside of me. Once you get that, that was one of the biggest revel unveilings of my life when I realized that planetary consciousness was real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mind blowing, heart opening.
Yeah,
Like, what?
yeah.
Yeah.
That was a big one for me.
Yeah.
That one blew my mind because I was like, I had never thought of it. It never even crossed my mind until one day that energy just like blew it open, and then it unveiled itself, and then I was like, oh, I've known this the whole time. Oh, it was just cloaked. I didn't see it,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? And so these are like these catapult moments that you get with alchemy, when we talk about coagulation. These are those coagulating moments or phoenix moments when you're
Mm-hmm.
rising from the ashes of everything that's been burnt down
Right.
and then put back together to form something else.
Right.
And so these are those coagulation moments when all those elements come together and all of a sudden the big boom takes place and you have this unveiling and you go, oh shit, this is real. That's
And
what needs to happen. This is how
yeah.
you navigate it. So if you're spending your time on social media and scrolling TikTok and scrolling reels and shorts and going through all of the daily whatever that you're doing with all the social media crap, stop and start looking into the arts of gnosis and find out who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need help with that, there's people out there that can help you with that.
Such as yourself. I highly recommend booking with Rodney. Holy moly. Highly recommend, kids. You won't regret it. You'll be hooked. And I don't mean that in a weird way. I mean
No, I
that
understand.
in a completely soul satisfied, empowering, um, your cells are gonna love it, and um you'll feel renewed. I think that is the word that I'm looking for, renewed, because that's how I felt after our time together, was this renewal where, yeah, I knew those things, and yet there was a sort of, I want to say, an up leveling and an expansion amplification at the same time that, um, I think had been covered over by a lot of erroneous fixations on my part about being of a certain age and the expectation,
Right.
once you reach your mid 60s, that somehow I'm going to be, I don't know. I don't know what I was looking for. Like a high five, it didn't come. There was no
Yeah.
high five. And, there was just, there were Medicare forms, and what gender I wanted to be identified as on the form. And I'm like,
Really?
fucking hell, are you serious? Really? Like, and I just remember just the deflating feeling that came over me. And just I had to snap out of it. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, well, these are the things they throw out at you though, man. I
Yeah,
mean, it's just,
totally.
they throw out all kind it's the parasite is embedded like a hydra
Mhm.
within all the systems of the world,
Yes, multi-headed hydra for sure.
And that's what's taken place. And and they've locked people down in consciousness to, these veils of illusion,
Mhm. Yeah.
but they've made it reality because that's who's running the game. So, the reality field has been hijacked. I mean, look, if you take the concept that, the creator himself, is being expressed within each one of us,
Mhm.
then what what is the point of this whole thing? What's the point of it? I mean, really, I mean, what is the point of this whole physical reality and everything that we're experiencing here if all we have to deal with is evil and lockdown
Uh-huh.
and what's
Yeah.
been hijacked in context to what actually was supposed to take place.
Hmm.
This is what we're dealing with. See, this is the deal. This is where the war is taking place on consciousness in context to what was hijacked a long time ago. And this is what we have to retrieve within ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
And when we're talking about that, we're talking about the halls of a mente. We're talking about the halls of the mind and the codes, and that's in the blood and in the spiritual and physical and mental DNA. We're talking about everything that's encoded in context to how things actually were supposed to work, where the reversals have taken place, where things have taken place in context to those reversals within the blood.
Hmm.
And now the ancestors are waking up in context to the blood and bones, and we are holding the ancestral energy. And literally, what we don't understand is that that is manifesting through us as mages in context to the mythos itself and the healing of our ancestors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's part of what's happening as well. So there's so much going on
Yeah.
that to navigate, you just don't chase the carrot, man. You quit chasing the rabbit down the rabbit hole,
Hmm.
you know? Just stop that and start caring about who you are and self-care and
Hmm.
self-gnosis and
Yeah.
start experiencing and exploring your universe. And once you can start to do that and you realize how much time you're wasting by scrolling and all the social media and realize that you could be putting that time into yourself and investing in yourself, that's how you navigate it.
Yes.
That's how you do it. You discipline yourself.
Hmm.
How else are you going to do it if you don't have some discipline? Got to have discipline. It's got to be cultivated. There may be times you don't want to do it, times you don't feel like doing it. There may be times you just, but you get up and do it. And then once you change your mindset, I mean, I've had times when I've went into my bistro and I'm like, oh my God, I just don't want to do this today.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
really don't. But in 10 minutes, I've changed my mindset and I'm loving what I'm doing
Yeah. Yeah.
because I'm in control of my energy field. You can't allow the stagnation to control your mind.
Indeed.
And then you got to be aware of it when it presents itself. Your body may be tired, but do you know what happens when you change your mindset and all of a sudden your mind starts to regulate in a different frequency?
Yeah. Yeah.
It affects your body. The next thing you know, you're energized.
Hmm.
That
So true.
that energy's coming from somewhere. See?
It's coming from consciousness.
Yeah, it's coming from your connection.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So that's how you do it. You have to realize that first of all, you got to realize that you're psyoped and just swallow the pill and realize that, hey man, everything that I probably know is bullshit. It's probably all bullshit.
Hmm.
So go back to the 0 point. I'll tell you a story. You want to hear a little story?
I do. I do.
So after I went through 4.5 years of dialysis, and I went through a kidney transplant,
Wow.
and and I came out of death's door 3 times, dealing with the Reaper. So, um, I went back. I lived in Phoenix for years and years and years, where I was in the church realm there. So I went back to Phoenix, and one of the things that sitting in the chair I would do is I would study. So I took that time in the dialysis chair to study gnosis, to study things. And so during that period of time, my focus was manifesting the perfect kidney for myself in context to intent and seeing it happen. And I mean, literally, I saw it all the way through to the end. And literally, I'm not kidding you, man. It all literally panned out exactly how I saw it over those years.
How
So I,
cool.
so I ended up being like this healing take place within me. Like when I got the call, I mean, literally, like you wouldn't believe the shit I had to go through. When I finally got the call, I had just got off the dialysis machine, and I looked at the dialysis on my scene, and I said to it, "Thank you for keeping me alive, but I will never need you again." And I went to the transplant place, KU Medical Center,
Hmm.
and the doctor came up to me as they wheeled me in, got me all prepped and wheeled me in, and said to me, "Don't worry about a thing. The most dangerous part of this whole operation was you driving up here." He says, "And by the way, you hit the kidney lottery." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Every marker upon this kidney matches your DNA
What?
as if it was your kidney."
How's that for materialization?
And I was like, I just leaned back and I had this thankfulness within my heart because I was at the end of my intent
Hmm.
and my imagination, what had actually manifested. I mean, to me, it was mind blowing, but to me, it's like I knew I could do it.
Yeah.
So I go to Phoenix to give my testimony to my friends. 3 hour meeting. I'm going over every detail, like from the beginning all the way down, right? And we're sitting in the room. And so I start speaking about the 0 point. And I said to everybody, I said, "You've got to throw away all your ideologies, all your bullshit, everything that every preacher's ever taught you, everything that you've actually learned or thought you learned from the pulpit." I said, "And you got to throw all that stuff in the garbage and you got to start at the 0 point of creation within yourself and find out who you are." As I said that, Marja, my phone rang. And do you know what the number was?
What?
All zeros.
Seriously. Nice.
Literally, all zeros rang on my phone as I was showing everybody after I had just said that. People were freaking the hell out. And I said to them, I said, "This is a call from myself to myself, my higher self to me here on the ground." I said, "And it's speaking in context to the truth that I just spoke to you." And that was the manifestation or the wonder that was manifested in context to the truth
Wow.
through the ethers. Is that mind blowing or what? It blew my
That
mind.
is mind
I was
blowing.
like, holy
Love it.
shit.
Love it.
So the 0 point is what you have to go back to and realize that, okay, and then you can go there in context to the womb or the zero, and then realize, okay, what have I actually learned that's truth?
Hmm.
See? And there is where you can observe and evaluate your position and where you're at.
Hmm.
And then that's your springboard. We call that Ganunda gap. That becomes the womb of creation within your 0 point, and that is the 0 and the 9
Hmm.
in context to the energy force.
Wow.
And that's where you have to go if you want to grow. And if you want to get real, that's where you heal. Because this is the place where you throw out all the bullshit, all the ideologies and all the
Yeah.
religious crap that you thought you knew or learned or
Yeah.
was driving your templating and driving your mind, the mind drive,
Yeah.
and taking it and bringing it into a place where you can release everything, come into that place of creation and say, okay, here I am.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm back in the womb again, you know?
Yeah. You have to
And that and
be.
that's where I went. I went to that place during my times of death, basically.
Hmm.
I was able to go to that 0 point and look, I wouldn't trade it for anything because of the fact that it took me to where I'm at now.
Hmm.
I can go back to I live in that space. Like anything happens crazy or weird, I go back to that space and I say, that's my 0 point. That's the place where I draw the protection of fire around me. That's the
Hmm.
circle. That's the place where I thrive.
Hmm.
That is the cone of power. That is the vortex of energy. That is the death card itself in context to the tarot, when if you're really looking at it. And then that is the space where the phoenix then rises from the ashes that have been burnt of all the bullshit that you thought you knew and thought you understood and knew when it didn't actually apply or wasn't helping you a bit. It was actually hurting you. When you burn that to ashes, the phoenix then can rise out of those ashes and scream across the sky.
Hmm.
That's why you've got to mount your dragon. That's why you got to mount the dragon. I mean, if you look at the tree of Yggdrasil, at the bottom, you've got Needhog, which is the white dragon.
Hmm.
But it's gnawing at the roots of Yggdrasil. Because why? Because it's the actual shadow dragon aspect and context, okay? But it's what is it doing? It's trying to eat the roots of the world tree. And this is just how I see it. And maybe other people see it differently. And then at the top of the tree is the eagle, which is the phoenix. So you have the dragon and the phoenix in the mythos of
Hmm.
Yggdrasil.
Yeah.
See? And when those two can connect, right, in harmony with each other,
Hmm.
that's where you have transmutation. As above, so below, as below, so above.
Yeah.
See?
And so without.
Yeah.
As the
And so
universe, so the soul.
right. So you
Takes
have this
that.
going on
Yeah.
and realizing that everything internally that's happening with you in your internal dialogue, your nervous system, everything that's firing, everything that's happening electrically and magnetically within this body, within this templating is having an effect on the all.
Hmm.
The problem
Yeah.
is that the hijack has taken place to the consciousness
Yeah.
of the all mind. That's what we have to get back.
Yeah. Love it. I'm all about it. I know you're all about it. We are all about it. Um,
And that's actually the great work.
yeah, indeed. Really great work. Thank you for that story. That is an amazing story. How long ago was that?
Oh man, 2017? Yeah, 2017.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been what, 6, 7 years ago at least.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's such a pivotal time
It
too.
was, yeah, truly was. And then later during that year there was an eclipse. I don't know if you remember that
I
eclipse or not.
do. I do remember that eclipse.
That was the thing. That was like the catapult for me too,
Mhm.
because then
Mhm.
right after that's when I was following a guy named Andrew Bartzis for a while,
Mhm.
and he was
Yeah.
called the Galactic Historian, and I was like getting into his like videos and stuff and listening to some of his stuff, and one night he had Sethicus on. And that's how I got connected with Sethicus, was through Andrew Bartzis. And so then I initiated with
I love
Sethicus
it. I
Boza
love it.
in 2017. And then that's when, I was so hungry. Man, I think I blew him up because I'm like, oh, I need another follow-up. I need another follow-up.
Yeah.
I was like so hungry at that time. And I still am, but I mean that was really a catapult
Yeah.
time for me.
Yeah.
And so thank God he was there, and he had a cup, he had a something that, that you could go into and actually, have, interface with someone who knew what the hell's going on, and so that was a really, really powerful time in my life.
I love how we're all connected. I think it was around that time that I connected with Suffolcus's work as well, 2017. And
Yeah.
it just that time catapulted a lot of uh, letting go for me, where I've undergone this whole metamorphosis of people around me translating off planet.
Yes.
It's like your entire support team just goes
Yeah.
and continuous. So, and looking at it from where I am now, it's like, oh, wow. It's actually allowed me to be able to move stealthily in and out of the matrix without the sort of entourage, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And not that the entourage was a bad scene. It wasn't, but the support is now coming from beyond, as opposed to the sort of day to day to day to day.
Yeah.
But when you leave that first veil, the waltzing in and out of the matrix becomes second nature,
Yeah.
and you do it stealthily.
Yes.
And there's more support than you can possibly imagine when you're able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, we are multidimensional creatures, in our consciousness. And,
Mhm.
you know, what a lot of people, there's so much bullshit out there, but a lot of people don't understand that the physical realm that we're in, the density of it, is what we're here to master.
Mhm. Yeah.
This is the realm. This is a very high level test or whatever you want to call it, man.
I agree
And
with that. I
you
agree with that.
know,
Yeah.
and I think that a lot of people want to pass that off or say, I want to be in the higher realms. Well, you don't. I
No,
don't
no,
necessarily think you
it's
can get
it's
into a
here.
higher realm than what you're in right now, man.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. You have to incarnate in this life on purpose. Like you were talking about, enjoying the journey,
Yes.
however it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, through the pain, man, you have to realize that it's the pain that's teaching you, and use it as that. Use it as a teacher and realize that that's where, you're able then to become the great transmuter and transformer of your own life.
Indeed.
Be that transformer or that transmutation process, be that transmuter of your own consciousness, you know, and then you will have a regenesis that takes place
Mhm.
that is going to really catapult you. I don't know. I don't think actually the human race is incapable of anything. I think if we can dream it, if we can see it, if we ever got our shit together as a human race and connected like we should, I don't think there's not anything that we couldn't do, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
The problem is that we've been in this conquer, divide and conquer mode and survival mode for so long and oppressed for so long by the outside forces
Hmm.
that and the strongholds that we think that that's just normal.
Hmm. Yeah, it's not. They want us to think it is, but it's
Yeah,
not.
but
It's
it's
not
not.
normal. And
No.
they need us more than we need them.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've basically bypassed the process by doing what they're doing. So they've went all in.
Hmm.
They're all in.
Yeah. Mm,
We got to be all in.
indeed.
If as we can't we can't bypass things just because they're hard. You know, you've got to forge through things and realize that there is an end to this beginning.
Hmm.
and then you're going to reap what you've sown, and you're going to reap the benefits and the sheer power of what you just forged, what you just went through, what you just endured in context to suffering, going through the pain and realizing that on a transmutation level, it's not easy to do, but you keep doing the work, you keep doing it because at some point it's going to pay off for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you keep doing it. Because what's the alternative?
Yeah.
You don't want to go down that road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Been down that road.
Yeah. Or the trap of reincarnation. We'll just come back and make it right in the next life.
Yeah.
No. No.
No, there's times when you've got to really dig in, man. You got to dig in hard. And once you set your feet in and you set your face like flint to what it is
Mm-hmm.
that you need to pass through,
Yes.
then you become the arrow point,
Mm-hmm.
in context to that.
Yeah.
See, and that's when you've got something, man. But it comes down to making a choice, to seeing your initiation through all the way. You got to make that at the beginning, man.
Yeah. Indeed.
So anyway, that's about all I got.
Well, I am just so thrilled by this evening. I can't even tell you. It has been absolutely delightful. And I'm looking at the time. Wow, that just went way too fast for me. It's like,
Yeah.
who knew? What do you got on the horizon? What's happening? How can we find you and stay in touch with you and
Well,
look with you?
I kind of put a little bit of my teaching on the back burner because I
Hmm.
had this project started a year ago or so.
Hmm.
And so I'm still deep into that. But I do consultations and readings on Sundays, Monday nights, and Tuesdays.
Okay.
Those are the days that I do this work. And so if you want to get a hold of me, hardcoreproductions9@gmail.com.
Okay.
You can also get a hold of me at on Facebook at Hardcore Productions.
Okay.
Have a Facebook page. My website is hardcoreproductions.com. You can look at what I have there to offer. And then you can always hit me up at Rodney Goodwin on Facebook on Messenger if you'd like. Um, I'm also on Telegram, um, White Dragon 9 on Telegram.
Cool.
And the handle that I carry on Telegram is Big Electric Cat. So
Meow.
yeah, so those are the ways you can get a hold of
All
me.
right, cool.
Yeah.
We will have all of the Rodney's information in the show notes below. And I can't thank you enough. It was really,
Well,
really wonderful.
thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's been great.
Yay. And so, kids, that is it for this segment. And so, until we meet again, here is to love, truth, and beauty, my beloveds. Bye bye for now. Mwah! Ciao, bellas.